You're probably not going to want to miss the interview that we have to show you in just a moment. Todd Cover, the head coach of Wheeling Central Baseball, stopped in here on a Sunday afternoon for an incredible conversation, lots of insightful things that he and I talked about, and really a good look inside the Wheeling Central Baseball program. Welcome in. It's March 18th, episode 29 of Hometown Huddle on the Harco Media Network. I'm your host, Drake Watson, and I'm glad to have you with us. Before we get to that interview, which is coming up in just a moment, we've got, just a ton of basketball to talk about on this evening's show. So that will lead to tonight's trivia question. We're talking about the East District all throughout. Has the East District ever had 5 boys basketball teams in the state Final Four throughout all the divisions? Has that ever happened? Yes or no? That's the trivia question. Remember, email the correct answer to be the first to email the correct answer to drakewatson@harcomedia.com. You can find it in the description of the Facebook post, the YouTube video, the podcast, wherever you listen. You can find it in the description or the show notes. Hit us up. Be the first to email the correct answer. You can win yourself a free round of golf down at the beautiful Cadiz Country Club. A little bit of an update. Back when we had our Cambridge question, we had lots of answers, and they came in rather quickly. So I recommend you do so fast. I mean, they were in before anybody could have been finished with watching the episode. So we got in contact with the winner of that week's trivia question, and we are working with the country club to get that set up, and we will get that sent out as soon as we can. And last week, the Indian Valley, listen, guys, I was told as a young person, you can't always use Wikipedia. The new version of that is that ChatGPT. It helped me out a little bit ago, but you can't use it for stuff like this because I watched somebody do it firsthand. So he was then exempt. And you're not always going to get the right answer. You got to be deep into the weeds of this stuff to get the answer. Maybe that was a bit of a tough question as well. And hey, this just dawned on me, but since nobody got the answer to that, the correct answer to last week's trivia question was Malvern was the first team that Indian Valley defeated in 1988. I think it was like 21-8 was the final week 2 game. So that's an update on trivia. But enough of that. We've got a big interview to show you right now. Take an inside look inside the huddle with Wheeling Central Baseball with head coach Todd Cover. I'm Drake Watson. That's Todd Cover, head baseball coach at Wheeling Central. Coach, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for coming to Cadiz and stopping by and talking to us this afternoon. And we are really looking forward to an inside look at the Wheeling Central baseball program that you guys have done so well with as of late.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Drake. I'm always willing to drive and talk about baseball. So nothing else going on a Sunday night, but so let's talk ball.
Is it baseball season yet as far as weather outside? I mean, I feel like one day it's baseball season, the other day it's maybe beginning of basketball season again. It's going back and forth a little bit. How does that affect you guys at practice?
Well, it's not ideal. I think we've been outside one time, so it's not ideal for that. But luckily we have the Highlands indoor facility in Wheeling. We're able to use that, so we can still get our work in a couple times a week.
What was everything like before that opened? Because that's just a recent thing, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I've only been involved with the program for about 4 years now. So before that, I think you just try to go in the gym after basketball or after wrestling and after every other sport that's in there, which creates some headaches and some kids that maybe want to actually study and get ready for tests. It makes it difficult on them. So having the Highlands, it allows us to pretty much set our schedule. We try to go there on Mondays. It's usually 3 to 5. On Thursdays 5 to 6, and then maybe a Friday or Saturday here or there.
You talked about being involved for 4 years. I wanted to know, for the folks that might not be aware, what is kind of your story as far as maybe your days in high school up to now, as far as how you got from where you were to where you are now as the head coach?
Yeah, so I went to Brook High School, graduated in 1994. Obviously played baseball and basketball up there. Went to Davis and Oaklands for 2 years, played baseball, and then transferred back home to West Liberty for my final 2. So after that, went out in the real world, got a job, had started having kids, and I told myself I wasn't going to play anymore as a player once I had a kid. So my oldest now is 24. So when he was 5, I got kind of drug into being a t-ball coach.
Okay.
Which kind of got me into it. Didn't want to do it at the time, but I've I've done it ever since and loved every minute of it.
What were the things that you started out as a T-ball coach? I think that's awesome. What are the things about coaching up young guys that you kind of latched onto that made you realize, you know what, I want to do this kind of as a serious thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously started T-ball, then you go to Pinto, and all three kids of mine, I have three boys, have all played travel baseball, so we did a lot of travel baseball. Got to meet a lot of great people over the years. I think the thing I like about coaching is just being around the kids. I think it really keeps you young. At Central, I know for a fact the last 4 years we've been very blessed to have just really good kids that you want to be around. It's fun to come to practice. It's fun to come to the games. Even the bus trips is as not so fun as that sounds, that they make it fun. So yeah, just being around the kids and trying to, I guess, give them a little bit of knowledge of the basics, how to play the game. And, hopefully the goal is when they have kids, they'll want to give back too.
How do you balance that? You talked about your real job a moment ago. How do you balance that with being the coach? Because both, if you want to be successful, which you are at both, you got to invest a lot of time in both of those things. How do you balance that? And what does your time management look like, I guess?
It's pretty busy. It's pretty hectic.
You probably got a secret that a lot of us don't have.
I wish I did. No, it's just a lot of running around. To add to that, I had my oldest son, Eric, who's going to help me coach at Central this year as our pitching coach. He played for the last 4 years at Cunningham Ave, so he just graduated. So you add to that, not only being bank president, being a head baseball coach, I'm also chasing around my kids. I just told DJ over there that my middle one is a freshman up at West Liberty. He had a doubleheader today. They won the first game. They were losing the second game when I came in here, but hopefully they can come back. But add to that, it's kind of been my life. You kind of get used to it. Whenever you can take a day off, you try to just take a day off and just veg out and not think about anything to kind of keep your sanity. But it's just, time management. I've learned to go into the bank a little bit early. I try to get there, between 6:45 and 7 o'clock. That way, if we do have baseball practice or a game, I can leave a little early and know that I've gotten my stuff done, my work done there. But it's also about having good people around you, really. I have great assistant coaches at Central. I have, a great management team at Belmont Savings Bank. So just having great people around you that if you have to step away for something, know nothing's going to be dropped.
I've imagined we probably got to tell DJ we can get that baseball game probably on that TV here if possible. So we'll put him to work. But I don't imagine that you waste a lot of time, because to kind of split things up like that, the things that a normal baseball coach might be spending an entire day on, you can only spend half a day on. And so you've really got to make sure that, no second is wasted, whether it's your office, whether it's out on the field, whatever it is. How do you go about, and you've probably got to, give that mindset to your players as well, that you can't waste a second of practice, anything else. So what goes into making sure that you're making the most of the time that you have?
Just you try to plan it out a little bit. I've never been an overly organized person, but with all the things going on right now, you kind of have to be. You try to plan out, hey, from 9 to 10, I'm going to do this. My driving time is a lot of thinking time about what we need to do at practice and also what we need to do at the bank. So just, you just try not to waste any time or any moment that you have. And again, it's surround yourself with great people that can help you through some things, especially during baseball season.
Who are some guys that you think maybe would make an impact? I guess just talk about your group that's coming up in the 26th season. Who are some folks that we might be able to look out for on the diamond that you think would make an impact? And also their investment over the last few years, because we just talked about time management. I mean, there's a lot of mental capacity. There's a lot of physical things that are needed for doing the kinds of things that your group does. What goes into that? Just talk about your team for a little bit.
Yeah, so with us, it's always been pitching and defense. That's my thing. Even back in Pinto, I was one of the few guys that I wanted to have a catcher. It drove me crazy that any ground ball that some people don't put a catcher back there and they just let that run score. Like me, it's like the less runs you give up, the less you have to score, right? That puts so much less pressure on your guys when they're batting. So again, pitching and defense has always been our kind of staple and what we're going to build off of. And we're lucky this year, as long as everybody stays healthy, we have two Division I signees pitching at the top of the rotation. That's, my youngest, Braden Cover, and then Stephen Brodegard. Braden signed with Akron and Stephen with Mercyhurst. So it starts right there. We have another 4-year guy, 4-year letterman, Matt Carnetti, that's kind of like the glue guy. He does a little bit of everything, but probably doesn't. You don't read much about him in the paper, but I think you will this year because he's going to do a lot more than we've asked him to do in the past. So those are the seniors right now, and then you got Coy Lipinski, who's our catcher. He's been our catcher for 4 years basically. He was a state player of the year last year for Double A. So. That's a pretty good senior class. Cade Coronis, who's probably need to know more about him on the football field, but he's kind of he's been a mainstay for the last 3 years for us, and he's gonna man one of the outfield positions for us, and so there's a core group coming back. I tell people we lost 5 really good seniors last year, 4 batters that played for 4 years. You could kind of pencil them and their positions in. It kind of made it easy that you would pencil those guys in, then you kind of work around it. Well, you lose 4 guys like that. I think we have the talent to replace them. It's just going to be people that haven't done it before.
Do you guys feel a sense of a target on your back maybe because of the success that you've had in the past? How do you deal with that do you talk about it with your team? How do you deal with it with your team? Because I think there might be sometimes without those conversations, there's maybe those guys are thinking about it a little too much, and it can get the best of them. How do you guys handle that?
Well, I think whether you have success or not, I think when you have Wheeling Central across your chest, a lot of people want to beat you, and that's from the past. And for us, we do have a target on our back. We're the defending state champs. We won OVACs back-to-back years. But I enjoy that position, and I talk to the kids about it. Like, you want to be the favorite because that means you have talent. You have the ability to do it. So I would rather be that than someone that no one knows about or no one's heard about.
Pressure's a privilege.
It is 100%. It is, and I talk about it. I said, I told him the other day we're probably going to be ranked again in the top 3 of the state. I'm not sure when those rankings come out or how it's going to be, but I assume we're going to be pretty high up. So, our job is just to work to stay at that level, and I tell them, every day at practice there's something you can get better at, and we work pretty hard to try to get to that level. Now we're at that level. It's gonna be probably a little bit more work on our end to try to maintain it. So,
do you think it's harder maybe nowadays to keep your guys from looking at the external noise because it's at their fingertips? I mean, there's really nothing you can do, whereas maybe several years ago you could control it a little bit more. So I think whereas in the past, maybe you tell them, like, literally don't read the outside noise and you can have a little bit of control over that. And now it's like they're going to read it either way. So, or see it or hear about it, whatever the case may be with social media and everything else. So you really got to train that mental aspect of them to not take that seriously. No voice outside of our building matters kind of thing. Are those the kinds of conversations as you have with your guys?
We don't talk about it too much. Obviously I know that they can see and read and, hear what everyone's saying, but for us, it's just about us. And I tell them every day, when you step between those lines, expect to win. That's what I expect out of you. I don't want you to be cocky, and I don't want you to be, someone that people don't like, but I want you to act like you expect to win every time you step on the baseball field, whether that's practice or whether that's in a game, expect that. I want you to have that confidence. If you don't have that confidence, I'll find somebody that will. Because if you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be hard to be successful at anything, let alone baseball.
We talked with another guest a little bit ago, and we were saying how you got to have a sense of craziness kind of about you. You got to be a little bit insane because you have to believe that, like, you never want your guys to walk out onto the field thinking that they might lose. Like, you can't think that way. You can't afford to think that way.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, outside from the obvious things, right? You got to be able to pitch. You got to be able to swing the bat. But aside from those things, what are the things in your mind that are crucial to winning a game, particularly in high school baseball in this area? If you could name a few things that maybe some folks might not think about off the top of their head, what would those things be?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. For us, again, it's on the defensive end. When the ball's hit to you, catch it. Make the outs that you're supposed to make. I think more games like in high school, not just locally, but I think nationwide, are lost more than they're won. Okay. And for us, it's about, don't give the other team anything. Throw strikes when you're on the mound. If you're in the field, when the ball's hit to you, catch it and throw them out. Catch a fly ball. Do the things you're supposed to do, number one. Then number two, I think base running is a little bit overlooked sometimes. Okay. we work very hard on first to third. So if there's a base hit to right field, it's about getting an aggressive lead and getting to third base. Having a runner at second versus having a runner at third with less than 2 outs is, enormous. You think all the ways you can score from third base with a pass ball, an error, anything. So, we want to get from first to third as much as we can and push the envelope a little bit. Like we just talked about, most games are lost versus won. So if you force that outfielder to make a strong throw to third base and throw it on the money, then, he could do it. That's great. You tip your hat to him, but we're going to keep trying. And, we're going to keep testing you. And one of these times you're going to throw it over his head and we're going to score a run off it, or, we're going to beat the throw and then we'll score off something else. So I think that's the two things for us. Just catch the ball when it's hit to you, pitchers throw strikes, and then, be smart on the bases, but be aggressive.
What happens when pitchers don't throw strikes? I sense one of the things that I see. What's that?
They're not going to last long.
I see a lot of times when guys, maybe in important moments in a game or whatever, when they really need to throw a strike, but you can't throw a strike every time.
Yeah.
Mentally, that can kind of get the best of some guys. What kind of things do you and your staff do to make sure that hey, it's next play, that one's behind you. You can't let that affect you moving throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's work on it. I'm not a patient guy when it comes to coach.
Okay.
And you can ask anyone that's ever played for me. Like I always tell them, throw strikes. It's not that hard. Of course, I was a pitcher in college. I walk guys. Everybody has bad games, but for me, it's about attack the strike zone as much as you can. If you're not throwing strikes, and you've shown that over the course of the game, you're probably not going to last too long.
Yeah.
We'll find somebody else that maybe it is their day. But I trust my guys for the most part. I think we're pretty deep, knock on wood, as long as we stay healthy.
Sure.
I think we're pretty deep as a staff. So for us, it would just be the next guy up mentality.
What's your thoughts on crosstown rivalries? I think everybody around the Valley would love nothing more than to see you guys in Wheeling Park play.
Yeah.
What's the status of that? I mean, could you talk about that at all?
Without getting in trouble? I'll just tell you from my perspective. I was told by our athletic director that next year we can start to scrimmage each other. So that, at least that's a step in the right direction.
I get the sense.
For me, I've coached a lot of kids that play for Park, and I've coached a lot of kids that play for Central. So for me, it's the kids want to play each other. Why not have that big game environment that everybody's craving? Not everybody. We're fortunate to go to the state championship last year, but not everybody's going to make it that far. Not everybody's going to get to experience that big game environment where everybody cares, everybody's there. Possibly getting TV there,
Sure.
radio, newspaper, definitely. I mean, the big game environment's why you want to play high school baseball. And a lot of the Central people I've met over the last 4 or 5 years have said, playing Wheeling Park was one of their best memories of college or high school baseball.
Yeah.
And they didn't win. They won some, they lost some. But to me, it's not about the winning and losing. It's just about creating that big game environment that everybody wants to be a part of.
Well, in a big game environment exists in a state championship. And excuse my ignorance, but where are those played at?
Last year, it was held in Charleston. This year, they have moved it to Huntington, which is where Marshall University is.
Yeah. What's crazy about if you guys, Park, whoever it might be, if you want to create a local big game environment, it's right there. It's in Wheeling, and so you don't have to go to Huntington. You don't have to go to Charleston,
right?
And you still get that local, teams that everybody knows and different things like that. But you talked about coaching your son a little bit ago, and it's my understanding you got some assistants that have sons on the team. Mm-hmm. What's that like? How do you balance because I'm sure as a parent you might want to be a little bit harder on your own kid, but as a coach you got to be equal. All these things. There's just a ton of stuff that goes into that. What's that like for you and your staff?
It's you just got to be cognizant of it. Mm-hmm. We've kind of handled it to most of the time we try to have each other handle the other person's son. Whereas if say my son's Braden, he's pitching and he's not having a great outing, I can see as soon as I get up to go out and even just talk to him to slow the game down, I can see his face and I can see he's not happy that I'm coming out. So in those scenarios, I'll say, hey. Coach Storm or Coach Rosnick or Coach Cornetti, can you go talk to him for a minute? Try to settle him down, hear from another voice, and I'll kind of do the same. They'll tell me hey, I need to tell Zane or Matt, this, and I'll kind of go handle that for him.
What's the most difficult place to play in the Ohio Valley that you guys have recognized over the last few years?
difficult place. I don't know. I like playing in them all. Like we've been, I guess, unfortunate that we haven't really had a home field the last 2 years.
Okay.
Right. So 470 last year was just unplayable for a lot of the year, and in this past June on the Storms, it kind of got wiped out. So we're going to play pretty much every game away from our home field. So.
Okay.
For us, I like going to the road. I like playing in different environments, different scenarios, and just seeing different things. But I don't know if there's one that jumps out that's like super hard to play. And I mean, crowd noise, not much in high school baseball.
Sure, yeah.
I like coming to Harrison. They've been good to us. Mike's been great to us, allowing us to play some games out here.
I haven't asked you your favorite place yet.
Tough place. I don't know. I mean, Lindsley's kind of tough because it's, there's no dugouts. It's kind of like open. And
Okay, yeah.
You're kind of intermingled with the fans. So you kind of want to keep the parents, away from what you're trying to do. I guess I would say Lindsay just for that fact. But again, I think I have a pretty good relationship with Coach Cartwright, and that's a fun place to play too. I mean, it's a pretty good environment, but I would say just for the fact that the fans and the parents can come up and actually interact with their kids, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah. I think about parents and I think about fans. They play a big part in baseball games in high school, at any level. Same thing with basketball, but just because there's that sense of intimacy, because they're so close to the action. Any kind of memorable moments? You don't have to get yourself in trouble or anything, but anything that sticks out to you as far as a memorable moment, as far as fans or parents maybe playing a factor in a game.
I would say our big rival is Williamstown. We've gone back and forth with them in all sports basically for the last 25 years, maybe a little bit longer. So their venue their home field has like fencing just right up on home plate, and their fans sit right on top of you.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, they're there an hour before the game starts, and they're like parents, full adults, are heckling you and heckling your kids. So. I would say 2 years ago, we had a game 3 down there to go to the state tournament. I would say they influenced a couple calls that didn't go our way just because they're on top of home plate. They're on top of the umpire. They're on top of your kids. I would say that kind of got in our kids' heads a little bit. Thankfully we were able to overcome that last year and beat them. But I would say that environment just wasn't the great.
Talk about the state tournament just in general. I mean, you would know better than anybody what that process is like, maybe whether it's hospitality or just the whole process. Anything that sticks out to you about that?
It's just so structured. It's hard to, with baseball, you try to keep the same pregame ritual. You try to keep the same environment you've had in a regular season, but it's so structured. It's, you got 5 minutes to stretch, and you got 15 minutes for infield, and you got 10 minutes for introductions, then you got 5 minutes for this, and it's just like, can we just play baseball?
Right.
I would say that is kind of a little bit different, and it's a little bit, I wouldn't say tough to get used to, but it's a little bit different and throws you off what your normal pregame routine is.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up here, I guess as far as scheduling, we talked about a couple different things, but your schedule this season, what are some things that stick out to you, and maybe some opportunities for a lot of Valley folks to get out and see your guys, and to talk about your schedule from that perspective?
Yeah, well, for me, we try to accomplish two things. So, our AD, Seth Statsky, helps us a lot with scheduling. So, for me, it was play as many big teams as we can, meaning teams that are schools that are bigger than us. And the second thing was try to get as many games on turf as we can, because obviously, with an unsteady forecast, unsteady weather in the spring, you try to get those games in, and that's a huge advantage to be able to play on turf. So we try to accomplish those two things. Again, as I was telling DJ, not when you're good or perceived to be good, not everybody wants to play you.
Right.
And to me, that's the shame. Again, we talked about the big game environment.
Yeah.
I would love to play every 5A school there is, and we reached out to pretty much all of them. So there were some that got back to us. Morgantown we're going down there to play Morgantown, which is going to be really good this year. Highland, which is a team a little bit outside the area, but they're the 3-time state defending champs. So
Sure.
They're going to be good. St. Clairsville, we're going to play St. Clairsville this year. Indian Creek, who's going to have a lot of people back. I would say those Lindsley's obviously I think is going to be really good. We have them; they're one of our rivals. We have them twice. Trying to think off the top of my head here. Williamstown, we have them twice. They're one of our rivals, as we talked about. Valley Harrison's going to be good. I think they got a lot of people back. They were young the last couple of years, so that's going to be a good game. Yeah, I think, for me, anytime you can get two Valley teams together, Toronto is another one. It just popped up in my mind. They're always a good program. Again, we try to play. We're willing and able to play anybody we want. If anybody out there sees this and they still need games, give us a call. We still need two more left. We have two open dates, so we'd love to play anybody. And like I said, just creating that big game environment for the kids because they deserve it. They work so hard, and the baseball season in itself is just kind of so compressed. It's you start in late March and you end in June, but it's like everything's just smashed. 32 in West Virginia, you get 32 games, so those 32 games are just smashed in in whatever that is, month and a half, basically before playoffs start. So it's an everyday grind, and some days are going to be your days, and some days are going to be opponents' days. But we just try to make more. Hopefully, more of the days are our days versus the opponents.
What are the hangups as far as maybe stretching that thing out that you can see? I mean, I can't imagine it's easy or something that the coaches enjoy. The fact that the schedule is so compressed like that.
Yeah, and I was talking to DJ a little bit about college baseball. So college baseball, and my son
does it end in May?
College baseball ends in May, but it starts in February, if you can believe that. I mean, you got teams in the North hosting games in mid-February on Valentine's Day this year, and it's crazy to think about. Why do we need to do this? Like,
it's snowing outside.
It's snowing outside, right? It's 30 degrees. It's not enjoyable for anyone. So why are we doing this? But for me, I think it's just about the summer leagues. The travel leagues and the travel organizations. Perfect Game is probably going to have a huge hand in that. PBR is another big organization. That I would say, getting them on board to somehow we can mix the high school season with kind of the travel season.
Right.
Somehow, if we could end up doing it, you could obviously play most of your games in good weather instead of playing in 40 degrees, which is not fun for anyone.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think it's so interesting you talked about turf, because I think on the football side, there's been some talk that's kind of shifted away from turf maybe as far as health of the players, your knees and things like that. But as far as baseball, when it comes to weather, there's probably nothing you want more than turf, because you guys are the type of program you want to play, and you want to play the best. And so having grass might be a little bit of a disadvantage in that regard.
It is, and with that, I mean, I can't tell you how many radars I've had to watch to try to say, hey,
you become a weatherman.
There's a 2-hour gap here. Can we get this game in? Can we drive out to wherever we're going, or can they come to us, get here in time, and avoid this weather? So with turf, that just kind of alleviates some of that. We get the field ready, or the opponent gets the field ready, and we drive out there, and then it just unloads. I mean, I know one time we drove up to Indian Creek last year, and we tried to get the game in, and it looked positive for a minute, so we took off from Wheeling, got up to Indian Creek. They were warming up, and I think we were just getting ready to warm up, and then all the weather broke loose, and we ended up it was so severe. We ended up having to go into the middle school, and both teams were in the middle school, sheltered, and just until it passed, and then we come back out, and obviously we couldn't play, but. I think with turf, it just allows you a little more flexibility. Like I said, if there's a 2-hour gap in a weather situation, you can possibly get a game in, versus if you're on dirt, you're probably not going to be able to do it.
Sure. Anything else you'd like to add before we get you out of here? Once again, we do appreciate you coming in
I'm
here.
just excited for the season. I know I mentioned the seniors to us, but there's a whole slew of juniors that are really going to help us out. I think look for the Jake Browns, the Brady Ernest, the Clay Petries, the Zane Rosnicks to have big years for us, and hopefully if those guys can stay healthy, we can be successful and be back in the same position we were last year. So again, our goal this year is to just try to get better every day, and hopefully we can be playing our best baseball when it comes to playoff time and in mid to late May.
All right, Coach Cover, we appreciate your time, and thanks for coming out to Cadiz.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle is proudly brought to you by Waterfront Hall. Anything from food, a bar, live music, different events, weddings, a spa, you name it, they've got it all here at the Waterfront Hall, right in Wheeling, the heart of the Ohio Valley, right between West Banco Arena and Interstate 70. Once again, big thanks to Waterfront Hall for sponsoring tonight's episode of Hometown Huddle. You can visit them at www.waterfronthall.com.
drakewatson.com.
Good stuff that Coach Cover was talking to us about. And once again, we greatly appreciate his kindness and his ability to get out here on a Sunday and talk some high school baseball, because we're gearing up for that time. I'll tell you what, though, steaming hot cup of coffee on the table tonight, because, listen, I don't know if it's November or if it's March. You don't know what it is, because I think Hometown Huddle caught a hometown cold because we went out for a run. Not the kind of day that you want to go outside and take a run because of the kind of conditions that we've experienced here in the valley, in the snow and everything else. After, we had what seemed like blizzard-like conditions after we most recently had 70-degree weather. And, I'm not talking about last summer either. So that felt like a little bit of a shock to the senses, and I don't think it would have if we had experienced that in the midst of the severe weather that we experienced at the end of January and the beginning of February. But once you go back and forth and you oscillate a little bit in terms of weather patterns, that can get some folks a little messed up, and I know I'm not the only one. One thing I wanted to talk about real quick, as we gear up for baseball season, who can defeat Wheeling Central? They're coming off a state title in baseball. You've got a lot of great baseball teams here in the Ohio Valley. They'll run into some of them. Now, anybody can beat them on one given day, in one given game. Anybody who does the things that Coach Cover talked about. But what I'm talking about is more so in the race for a state title, because Wheeling Central Athletics has been on quite the tear lately when it comes to state championships throughout their entire athletic department. And so if you want to look at it from this state championship perspective, it's who's going to be the team that can have a good pitcher. I mean, that's the great equalizer in the game of baseball, is having good pitching. Obviously, you gotta have guys that can swing the bat. Who can swing the bat against the pitchers that Wheeling Central will put out there this season? And again, some more of the stuff that Coach Cover talked about. Teams that do the fundamentally sound things, right more consistently. Good defense. How fast can you get from first base to second base, and et cetera? Those are just some of those things that I think we'll be keeping an eye on as we watch out for whoever might unseat the Maroon Knights as far as state championship contention as we move throughout this spring. That's a look at Wheeling Central baseball. And again, we really appreciate Coach Cover for taking some time out of his likely busy schedule to get out to Cadiz and talk to us. We really appreciate that. Okay, let's move along. Girls basketball in the state of Ohio. How about the Strasburg Tigers winning their first ever state championship, 38-37? No, that's nowhere near. We can't go back. That's nowhere near the correct score. 38-17. You knew it was, because if it was that close, then everything that I've written down is irrelevant. 38-17. I remember that it was a clean football-looking score, which we always appreciate, over Russia. I've heard it said both ways. Doesn't really matter to me because I'm not communist. So Strasburg, they led 17-8 at halftime. So that's a 9-point game. That's still a 3-score game. Anybody for the opponent could have gotten hot in that second half and made that thing a close game again. Didn't matter. Strasburg, the Lady Tigers, went on a 14-3 run in the third quarter. It was 31-11 at the end of the third, and they never looked back. They led at one point by as many as 25. Tons of points off turnovers. Their opponents had a tough time turning the basketball over. Delaney Heron, she scored the only 3-point of the entire game. Strasburg, as a team, was 1 of 7. Russia was, or Russia, whatever you say, is 0 for 12 as far as 3-point attempts in that championship game. And it makes a lot of sense when you realize that Strasburg ended up with 22 points from the paint. So a really physical style of game. They really beat up their opponents in that state title game. And it's Allie Miller with 17 points, 7 of 8 from the field, 3 for 3, 100% on her free throw attempts. That's always a good thing for your team when you can do that. And she also led the entire game as far as every player on both sides with 10 rebounds. Strasburg, they won their first ever regional final, I believe it was, earlier this season. And they said, well, why stop there? Why not just back it up with a state championship? And they did so in dominant fashion. It was a long road to get there, but they were deserving of it in the end. So that's good stuff from Strasburg, the area team that got a girls basketball state championship. With that, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll come right back with a lot of things to talk about as it relates to boys basketball. Particularly, we talked about East District having 5 teams. I don't want to give away too much, but we'll talk about that when we come back after this. We all love a great deal, and we all love a great deal of variety, and that's what you get with Thomas Auto Centers in St. Clairsville, Ohio. You can trade, buy, or sell with Thomas Auto Centers. Listen, Hometown Huddle, I Got Your 6, and Main Street Message, we're constantly on the road. How do we do it? Thomas Auto Centers. That's who we're driven by. All you got to do is go to thomasautocenters.com or visit their location in St. Clairsville. For more details, see the description of the video or the podcast show notes, and with that, back to the episode. Go with Thomas Auto Centers. Buy, trade, sell, anything you want and everything you need right there with their location in St. Clairsville. Okay, look at this. We've got a lot more to talk about as we move throughout this evening's show. I don't want to give away too much, but like we filled up the whole thing, and I shouldn't be too worried to show it to you because I don't think you'd be able to read it. I can barely read it. But I want to start with Division 5. This segment has to be brought to you by Mizer Printing Graphics because the entire West Muskingum Tornadoes basketball team, they're all Dempsey's dogs on this week's episode of Hometown Huddle. They are in the Final Four for the first time in school history. They had an incredible run over the last couple of games. Even throughout the entire season, I remember they eviscerated Harrison Central, really deflated them. They blasted Ridgewood. I mean, just a really dominant run throughout the beginning of the tournament. And then I was down in Athens for a game that we'll talk about a little bit later it was for Maysville and John Glenn. But after that game, myself and a friend of the program were watching this thing, and we were actually kind of irritated with ourselves because we realized probably 30 minutes too late that if we had left Athens at the very end, like right at the end of Maysville and John Glenn, we could have made it to Zanesville. By the way, why was this thing in Zanesville? I'm gonna refrain from getting a little fired up, but you noticed a lot of blue and gold in the crowd, not as much red, I would imagine, because that thing was on the other side of town from where Maysville actually is. But regardless, overtime buzzer beater. It was, listen, in March, any time of the year, I can always appreciate a good touchdown pass, and that's what it took to get the ball to the other end of the court. And then it was actually, that's what gave them the opportunity to have a realistic shot to make the three-pointer at the end to win the game and beat St. Clairsville. And what an electric atmosphere there in Zanesville when they defeated St. Clairsville. And then another close game over Ironton to punch their ticket to the Final Four, 45-42, the win. That one was in Athens. They've got a tough challenge coming up with Columbus Academy, that one in the state semifinals. That one's Friday morning. And how about Cole Smith? Has done a phenomenal job, 23 wins his first year as head coach with West Muskingum. Incredible stuff from the Tornadoes. Once again, they are Dempsey's dogs. That segment, as always, brought to you by Mizer Printing Graphics. Let's talk about Friday night. That's the Division 6 semifinal game between Highland, an IVC team, and Kirtland. Kirtland is a football powerhouse, and they've done incredible things, the Hornets have, on the basketball court this season as well. Before we do so, let's settle down a little bit with a sip of coffee, if that's not ironic. I almost opted for maybe water on this evening's show, but you got to do what you got to do. As we were saying, Highland and Kirtland. This, I imagine, could be one of the better games of the weekend. You got two teams that are rated pretty close together. Listen to this, though. This is one of the things that stuck out to me as I was looking at the bracket and the road that Highland has taken to get to this point in the season. They have, in their last 4 games, on average, won by an average of 32 points. Now, I don't know if that's going to continue. In fact, I wouldn't imagine that continues on Friday night when they go up against Kirtland. But that's an incredible stat, and one of the things that really pops off the paper at you when you take a look into this game. That goes back to the district semifinals, and I imagine if you go throughout even further back than that, it might be even more than that for all I know. Kirtland hasn't been quite as dominant, but they are rated number 4 according to Martin RPI in Division 6. I will say that Highland is number 3, so that's probably the main thing that makes me believe that this will be one of the better games of the weekend as all of these teams try to fight for an opportunity to punch their ticket to a state championship. All these things, by the way, out in Dayton. I saw somebody put out a really good point. If it wasn't deemed unprofessional, I'd actually pull out the cell phone and look for the tweet. But somebody wasn't happy that these things are all in Dayton, and they actually noted the fact that a majority of the teams at this point, there's 28 left that are in the Final Four. A majority of them are in Northeastern Ohio, or there are a bunch of teams in Northeast Ohio, also the East District, Eastern Ohio in general, right? I'm not going to go as far as to say, and neither did that person in that post, but we won't go as far as to say you should hold them at Akron or Kent State or anything like that. Certainly not Cleveland, because you've got some Cincinnati schools still left in this thing as well. But it would be incredible, and I subsequently learned that apparently Ohio State, this is just what I understand from the things you read online, which probably not the brightest idea, but apparently it's my understanding that Ohio State doesn't necessarily want anything to do with this tournament. I can't imagine why. The shot would be an incredible sight. I'm admittedly ignorant as far as whether or not St. John Arena would be able to hold these things. But you've also got Nationwide Arena in Columbus. Again, nobody's saying that you have to do this thing in Northeastern Ohio, but if we could at least literally meet in the middle and do these things in Columbus, that would be incredible, because you got to think about a lot of teams from just the eastern portion of the state in general to get all the way out to Dayton, especially we've got a couple like 10 a.m. tip-offs. That makes things a little bit tough for us folks on the eastern side of the state. But I digress. That was a look at Highland and Kirtland with a little bit of a rant at the end of that thing. Okay, so Friday at noon out in Dayton, Malvern and Delphos St. John's. Delphos, that calls themselves the America's friendliest city, they never will have anything on Wheeling. But I don't think they're going to be necessarily friendly on Friday when they go up against the Hornets of Malvern. Malvern has been incredibly fun to watch this season, but I don't know. I just have to imagine the magic stops at some point in this game. And listen, I'm not going to bet on Malvern losing because that is illegal. But we'll leave it at that. Dennis Tucci, hey, if he can pull off what I would consider an upset and get the win over St. John's, that would be his 601st win at Malvern. Just an incredible head coach, an incredible job that he's done up there. 600 wins right now. And that's a look at your semifinal matchup, once again with an IVC school in your Division 7 semifinal matchup. Okay, a couple more things to get to as it relates to Ohio boys basketball. It's incredible we're this far into the state tournament or into the postseason, and we've got so many area teams to talk about. And the next of which we'll talk about is Steubenville. They defeated Watterson. They didn't quite beat the snot out of them. Like I said, I wish they would. But, hey, they get the revenge. A lot of the football players are on that basketball team. And so the athletic department, I guess, in a sense, gets their revenge over Watterson. We know what Watterson did to Big Red the last couple of football seasons. Nobody is happy about it. So now Steubenville plays Hoban tomorrow night, Thursday night game. I kind of like their chances in this one. Again, we're not necessarily in the business of making predictions on this show. That might sound a little contradictory given what I just said about Malvern. But again, these are kind of just feelings that you have on a game. I'm never going to come out, well, maybe I will at some point and put a prediction out. Maybe we'll do that come football season. But I do like the chances that Steubenville has in this game. If they're able to pull off an upset, I shouldn't say an upset because I don't think it would be that on paper. I don't think it would be that in reality. But if they're able to pull off the win over Hoban, it's going to be a guy like Shamir Adams, Trayvon Wiggins, Jermaine Moore, if those guys sound familiar. I think Shamir Adams is the name that kept escaping me when I tried to think about who was the really good player defensively for Steubenville in that OVAC championship game that I called back in February. And it was Shamir Adams, a really good player on defense for Steubenville. All of these guys, you look at Adams, you look at Wiggins, Moore, as well as Haney and Bowers, and they really make up a good Steubenville group. And so, once again, I like to think that they would beat Hoban tomorrow night, but that's why you play the games, because a lot of times you play the games to prove people like me wrong. And so, if that's the role that I got to play, then so be it. How about Maysville? This game tomorrow at 2 o'clock. they've got Wyoming. They don't have my Wyoming. They don't have the Cowboys or anything, but they've got Wyoming. And here's the only thing that I can think of is Gator Nichols. He very easily could be Dempsey's dog this week as well. And if you look at, so I told you we were down in Athens last week, myself and a friend of the program for their game against John Glenn. First of all, incredible environment. Also, I would have bet money on the fact that they asked us which game we were there for when we walked in. Of course, we were late, so we missed a little bit of the first quarter of that game, but asked us which game we were there to see, and by the end, we realized that Circleville and Unioto was coming up afterwards. That was going to be Maysville's next opponent. Spoiler, they beat Circleville. But we thought that could be a great game because the John Glenn and Maysville game wasn't, given what I'm about to tell you. But I thought we were going to be screwed out of seeing that because I looked at my buddy and I was like, there's no way they don't make everybody essentially evacuate the arena. I just thought that's kind of one of the tactics that the OHSAA would use. But they didn't. Let me better not get in trouble. But we were able to see that game is the point of all this. And what an incredible matchup, Circleville and Unioto. Both of those games, the two games that we were there to see, incredible crowd, environment, student atmosphere. Both student sections showed up. In John Glenn and Maysville, you had a blackout versus a whiteout kind of deal on opposite ends of the arena, and that was great stuff. And obviously OU, a beautiful campus down there in Athens. But at one point in this, there's really no point in talking about the Maysville-John Glenn game, and I don't mean to say it like that, but I guess the context that I should add is if at one point Gator Nichols himself was outscoring John Glenn. And then by the end of the game, once Nichols was pulled out, obviously it was a running clock, so they yank him out and get some younger guys in there, get some experience. What a run they've been on over the last couple of years as well. Defending state champion, of course. But even after all that, once it's all said and done, 71-35 was the final. Nichols finished with 34. I don't know about you, but what that tells me is that if nobody else scored for Maysville and it was just Gator Nichols, if it was just the alligator out there, I don't know if that's what they call him. That's what I'll call him. Then Maysville would have just lost the game by 1 point. And you take away a couple of I think there was a free throw late or a two-pointer, something. Like if that game ended a few minutes earlier and Gator Nichols was the only one scoring for Maysville, then they still would have defeated John Glenn. And coming into this game and walking into that game, I thought we would see kind of a high-scoring shootout. It was that on one side, but the other side, I was so impressed, and that's what I want to talk to you about as we head into this Wyoming game for Maysville tomorrow afternoon, is that Panthers defense. The Panthers defense is what I thought was maybe the most impressive thing. It was like in school, right? You've got the person who everybody has a big test coming up on Friday. And this is how this is kind of the analogy I use whenever I see a team just kind of demoralizing when they just defeat another team and it's such a deflating loss and effort for the other side. Think about everybody's got to study. Well, think about two students. They've got to study for the same exam coming up on Friday. One guy studies for 3 hours Monday through Thursday, and a little bit Friday morning, studies his butt off, and the following Monday comes around after the exam on Friday, and he gets his paper back, and it says 74%. You passed, I guess. And then you got his buddy on the other side of the classroom who maybe studied. He might have glanced. He might have given a look at the material, and that's about it. They both paid attention in class. He gets his paper back the next Monday, and it says 91. And it's like, how is it that you had to work so much less for a better result when the other guy had to work so hard for not a good result? And that's what I felt when I watched Maysville just suffocate John Glenn on the basketball court. And it was really due in part to their defense. Their defense was nasty. And they walked in. Remember, we said on the show last week, neither team in Division 4, neither team at the conclusion of the regular season had ranked top 20 in points per game given up defensively. So I figured it would be a high-scoring shootout. And then you realize Maysville, that kind of held up on the John Glenn side, but Maysville's strength of schedule, that just shows me they're playing some really good offenses. And I think they're well equipped to hopefully make another run at that thing and repeat as Division IV state champs. And could you imagine? I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but if we go 5 for 5 here and we get 5 state champions from the East District, that'd be incredible. That would be incredible. You've also got a situation where the entire East District, there's no East District teams that I know of. I could be wrong. But as far as I know, there's no East District teams in Division 1 or 2. So from 3 through 7, you've got all 5 of them in there. And again, the trivia question, email the correct answer to drakewatson@harcomedia.com for a chance to win a free round of golf at the Cadiz Country Club. The question is, has that ever happened before? I don't know. Do you? Moving along, let's talk a little bit about West Virginia boys basketball. It's kind of a show, as you could see with the hat on the corner of the desk that was so graciously gifted to us by head baseball coach Todd Cover of Wheeling Central. It's a Wheeling Central show. Not a Wheeling Central show, but it's a Wheeling Central episode for sure. Because, listen, on Tuesday night they crushed Frankfurt, and their boys basketball team is looking to make another run at a state championship. They haven't lost a game yet. You know how hard that is in basketball when you play 20 plus of those things? I just said for their baseball team to repeat, somebody's going to get them. They might have an off day. And that's a given in basketball as well. Not with the Maroon Knights. Not with the Maroon Knights. And I think their success, the success that their entire athletic department has had, is probably a large portion of the reason why not many folks outside of, I'm not going to say what street it is because I'll forget. I think I just drove by there today too. But outside of that portion of Wheeling, I don't think there's many fans of Wheeling Central. But we're a fan of any team in the Valley that can make some noise in a state tournament. They've got Wayne High School in the semis. That one coming up this weekend. As I said, they're undefeated. Everybody talks about Eli Sancombe. He had a triple-double in the Elite 8 win over Frankfurt. And he had, I think, 23 points as well. Max Oliash had 27 in that game. He's also one of their playmakers. And don't forget about Luke Sancombe, just a junior, coming in with a very good average as far as points per game. And Nico Cusick doing damage for the Maroon Knights as well. So it's a complete group, more so than you would think, given the kind of, I guess, notoriety that Eli Sancombe gets and deserves. So while he's deserving of all that credit and all the accolades and everything, don't forget about the rest of the group that they have, because it's not a one-man show down there at Wheeling. And I think when you're a balanced team like that, that gives you a really good shot to make noise in the state tournament, and that's what the Maroon Knights are going to look to do. They're 2 wins away from an undefeated season and back-to-back state championships. Can you believe it? With that said, we'll take one more break and we'll come right back. We've got a lot of wrestling to break down. The wrestling tournaments have wrapped up in both Ohio and West Virginia. We've got notable results from both sides of the river when we come back after this. Spring is on the horizon, and with that comes spring cleaning. But why do the cleaning yourself when you can call Elite Mobile Power Washing of Cadiz, Ohio, 740-491-1120. Listen, you need your gutters cleaned out, concrete washed off, the side of your house washed off, pool decks, heavy equipment, you name it, they can wash it, and it'll look better than it has ever looked before. Once again, all you got to do is give them a call, 740-491-1120. More details in the description of the video or the podcast show notes. And with that, back to the show. The salt trucks were out. What was that, Monday night? Hopefully Monday night. It was pretty tough to, I made the wise decision on Monday and actually did a little walking and running indoors. That part was wise. Probably wasn't wise to drive that night, though, but the salt trucks were out. They got everything, to their credit. ODOT and those guys do a phenomenal job. They got everything taken care of by Tuesday. By Tuesday night, things were pretty much cleared as far as road conditions in the Ohio Valley, at least the main ones. What are we talking about? Why do we say that? Well, because of the salt and everything that goes around, you're going to have to clean things up. No better way to do it than with Elite Mobile Power Washing. So I might as well just start doing those ad reads live because that's fun to do until you screw it up. All right, we've got some wrestling things to talk about. We jotted some notes down. Myself and the staff compiled some notes. The staff and management helped out a good bit as far as the wrestling side of things. Got a very very big wrestling fan on the staff here at Harco Media. helps us out with a lot of things. You want to know how we were able to pull off that interview down in Wheeling at West Banco Arena? Yeah, the guy on our staff that loves wrestling. So we're really appreciative of him. We wanted to talk a little bit about some girls' results from Steubenville. Talia Guntram, third straight state title. Incredible stuff. She might as well be one of Dempsey's dogs. Everybody's Dempsey's dogs. Everybody can win, right? And Layden Hines from Barnesville, 39-4. She also wins a state title. She had to defeat a defending state champion to win that championship. Incredible stuff. And as we'll talk about in just a moment, that Barnesville wrestling program, something to not be taken lightly. They can really do some damage, as we'll talk about in just a moment. And as you noticed with Coach Steven, who was on here, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Wanted to talk a little West Virginia, though, first, before we got to that. As we look at the tournament and we recap this thing on the West Virginia side, John Marshall in that top class finished 8th in the state tournament. Wheeling Park was also in the top 10 at 10th. You move down. Oak Glen 7th. Weir was 8th. Incredible finishes from those teams. I wonder if Weir can recruit any of those guys to play on the offensive line this fall. That would be beneficial for that program. And Cameron, state champs, state team champs in wrestling in West Virginia. How about Wheeling Central? I've been talking to you all evening about how well their athletic program has done as of late. I think they had a soccer championship, and the other side, one of them, boys or girls, was the champ, and then the other one was runner-up. And now wrestling is runner-up. You know the story with football and basketball, and we talked about baseball with Coach Cover and everything. They're not to be taken lightly either. And Magnolia from the beautiful village, it's probably a city, of New Martinsville, finished 8th in that classification. To look at Cameron a little bit more, they had some individual champs as well. Braxton Birch with 132 pounds, Taylon Brown 157. Eli Tedrow won the 157 weight class last year, and he obviously added some weight this season and bumped up to 165. Doesn't matter. He won it again, and he opened the door for his teammate Taylon to win the 157 as well. And Maverick, is it Lily or Lily? 106 weight class champion from Cameron. Incredible stuff for the Dragons down there and all those teams in West Virginia that have done so well as far as state tournament wrestling. Let's take a look now at Ohio. This thing is wrapped up. Beaver Local. Beaver Local's done well in that Division II. They won a state or an OVAC championship back in January. They took 5 wrestlers to the state tournament. 4 of those 5 placed, and their team finished 4th. So incredible stuff. That Beaver Local program, something to take a look at. It was Jake Hughes who ended his season 44-4, 157-pound champion. He defeated Tommy Rollins from Watterson, who was 43-2. And Hughes is a 2-time OVAC champion. And so Beaver Local, one of those incredible wrestling programs in the Ohio Valley and certainly at the state as well. Jordan Bates also finished 4th in the 106 class. Bobby Buchheit. I remember we talked about him a little bit a few episodes ago on the show. I'm looking in there as if somebody's going to affirm that answer. There's nobody in there. He finished 7th, 4-time OVAC champion. That's what we were talking about a little bit ago on the show. Evan Hours finished 7th in the 165 class. New Lexington got 7th overall. If you look at a team perspective on this thing, again, not quite an area team. It feels a little bit easier of a drive at sometimes though, because of you're just going directly west. 7th overall. Canton South was in that thing. Claymont, some IVC schools. Indian Valley finished 38th. I completely forgot to mention it was Canton South finished 12th, and Claymont finished 14th. They actually tied with a couple of other schools. Steubenville finished 26th. Steubenville seems to do well in all of their athletics as well. Kind of one of those schools. Myself and somebody else were talking a little while ago. Steubenville and Wheeling Central, kind of for different reasons, or at least there's different connotations, but similar programs in terms of, and I shouldn't say programs, but athletic departments as a whole, given the kind of success that they each have in their respective states. If you look at Division III, we love our guy, Jason Stephen, who was on the show, and I mispronounced his name, I think, the first 2 times I talked to him, which I still feel terrible about. But Barnesville ends up finishing 6th at the state tournament, 65.5 team points. They won the OVAC championship back in January. They took 7 wrestlers to the state tournament. They've just done an incredible thing. And again, it's one of those things. A lot of these coaches, one of the reasons that we like to talk to those guys is not their secrets, because they're not necessarily secrets, especially if they'll just air them out literally, but just kind of the nuggets that they take with them. And, Coach Stephen said he likes to throw his guys in the fire. Coach Clifford from St. Clairsville is no different on the basketball side. And what we've noticed is that is beneficial for your team's success. It can be beneficial. I should say it's not necessarily guaranteed that you'll have good results, but competition creates better competitors. There's probably a much better saying that conveys the same idea, but you get the idea there. So, again, Coach Stephen has done an incredible job with the wrestling program at Barnesville. Easton Stephen finished 6th in the 106 class as we look at some individual stuff. Jackson Abereg is, I believe, how you say the name. I'm sorry, Jackson. He finished 3rd in the 120 class. The freshman Ryder King finished 8th in 138. Colt Carpenter finished 4th in the 144 class. Hines Ford has done incredible things. He finished 5th, and so incredible stuff from the Barnesville finish. If you look at some other teams that have done well in this thing, Garaway finished 9th in the Division III. Union Local, also a good wrestling program, as you'll notice, 11th. Toronto tied for 39th, and Martins Ferry, who's done well, had some nice individual results this season as well, 43rd. And that's a look at wrestling in the state of Ohio as that has wrapped up in the aforementioned or aforementioned, whatever is the correct pronunciation, West Virginia wrestling programs that have done well this season also. With that said, that's all we've got for this episode of Hometown Huddle. Thank you so much for being here. Quick sip of coffee, Rubio style. We will be back March 25th. We decided that we're going to bump the Brook football state of the program back to next week's show because we had so much to talk about this evening, and we're going to have a lot to talk about next week as well, if I understand things correctly. Obviously, we've got a lot of basketball stuff to touch on, and we're still gearing up for baseball season. We're working on getting a couple more guys in here to talk to, and with those guys getting so busy this time of year, that's getting a little tough, so we'll work on that. But once again, we appreciate you for being here. We appreciate you for watching every single time, not only Hometown Huddle, but if you're a regular viewer of I Got Your Six, hey, listen, March 30th, you know who it's going to be. Main Street Message with Brandon Ludwig comes to the Harco Media Network on March 30th. We couldn't be more excited. We've got some things taken care of in that regard, and so we're more than ready to get that off the ground and get rolling with that. He's going to be talking about a lot of incredible things. I think I gave a little bit of a brief synopsis of what his show would be about on last week's episode of Hometown Huddle. But if you're somebody who is interested in the inner workings, kind of how does local government work? What kind of role does that play in my life? That's something that I'm always wondering, right? Everybody knows the national storylines. We can toss that aside. What really matters is the local government making decisions that impact you and your family and your community, your literal community, right here at home. Everything from the village and city level to the county level, township stuff, grants, all those types of things. It is my understanding that those are going to be covered on Lottie's show, and it's also going to be mashed with a inside look at local businesses. And so it's really everything local that you could think of. I know he's going to have some incredible things and incredible people that he's going to talk to with regards to Main Street Message, and he's going to be going out on the road. We've got the Inside the Huddle series where we talk to coaches, players, officials, commissioners, you name it. We talk to the biggest people in Ohio Valley High School sports, and Main Street Message will be talking to a bunch of people as well, and he'll be out on the road a good bit with that as well. And you know how he does it? Thomas Auto Centers. With that said, that's all we've got for Hometown Huddle. We're back March 25th. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great night.